Bob Metcalfe, pioneer of the internet. Bob, you don't want me to call you the father of the internet?
Well, that title's already taken. I believe Al Gore claims it and Vint Cerf earned it, so I'm happy to just be a pioneer.
And then you've got to acknowledge motherhood as well, right?
Now, who would be the mother of the internet? I don't know.
Good question. Bob, in all seriousness, though, you are a real pioneer. A lot of people claim to be pioneers. You're the first guy I've had on my show, even has a law named after you. What did you pioneer?
Well, I started working on the internet in 1969-70 at MIT and Harvard and built some of the early hardware and software for it. But then my big contribution would be the invention of Ethernet in 1973 at the Xerox Palo Alto Research Center. And Ethernet is
So you're the
plumbing.
guy who invented that little plug.
That little plug-in, I'd like to overreach and say Wi-Fi is wireless Ethernet, so I want credit for that too.
So you invented Wi-Fi?
No, I invented Ethernet and Wi-Fi is wireless Ethernet, which was rebranded Wi-Fi, so I take credit for that.
And did you get very rich making these inventions?
Rich enough. Not very well in these days. I'm not a billionaire, no.
And what about this Metcalfe law? What does it suggest?
Well, Metcalfe's law says that the value of a network grows as the square of the number of users. It's never been numerically evaluated, so it's sort of a vision thing. And I came up with this law when I had trouble selling very small Ethernets. And I had to argue to my customers that they needed to grow their Ethernets before they would experience value. It was a critical mass point. So as the value comes up as the square, it soon overtakes the cost, and then you get a very valuable network. And that was called, later it was called Metcalfe's law.
It's a very powerful law, though, because it speaks of the significance of the network.
I think it explains a lot. I mean, Moore's law says computers get more powerful. Metcalfe's law says they get more powerful if you connect them together. So I think the combination of those.
So speaking of marriage, what happens when you marry Metcalfe's law and Moore's law?
That's already been tried, and it's Gilder's law. So George Gilder, who at first promoted Moore's law in his book Microcosm, promoted Metcalfe's law in his second book, another book called Telecosm, and then he combined the two, as you just suggested, and what happens is it's called the internet.
So beyond inventing Ethernet and having a law named after you, what else have you been up to?
Well, I've just begun my 5th career, so I guess what I've been up to is my previous 4 careers until now.
And those are 4?
Well, not counting 23 years in school, which is not a career. I was an engineer scientist for about 10 or 15 years, and then I was an entrepreneur as founding 3Com Corporation entrepreneur, and then later executive for another 13 years. And then I was a pundit and a publisher with InfoWorld, IDG InfoWorld for another 10 years. And then I've been a venture capitalist at Polaris Venture Partners in Waltham for the last 10 years. So that's my first 4 careers. And now for the last 2 months, I've been in my 5th career, which is Professor of Innovation at the University of Texas at Austin.
So is there a Metcalfe law about these 10-year periods, these 10-year experiences in different professions?
I don't think, I think my attention span, time constant, is about 10 years, and I have a lot of evidence, but other people may have different time constants in their attention span. But I highly recommend changing careers. It's very invigorating.
But they're all connected: VC, inventor, entrepreneur, professor.
They're all connected to technological innovation, which is sort of my life's work.
And how did you get into technology in the
My
first place?
My dad was an engineer. He was a technician, technically, in the aerospace industry starting in World War II. And he had a bunch of stuff in the basement that I played with, and decided very early I would be an engineer too.
There must be a dramatic difference between when you got into technology and now, where there's so many more people interested. It's become almost like rock and roll. It's become the thing in itself.
Well, that's the big difference. When in the earlier days that I have a lot of experience with, all the participants were men, and all the customers were fellow nerds, and the markets were small. And now technology is a consumer phenomenon, a cultural phenomenon, and it's hard for us nerds to adjust to that.
Did you expect it? Did you understand that you were early in this fundamental revolution in the way we organize and behave towards one another?
No, a lot of my colleagues like to exaggerate their ability to have predicted that. I was in the meetings with them I don't remember a lot of prediction of leading to what we're now experiencing as the internet. We were basically having fun building our own tools, and then it got out of hand.